So I went through your stuff that you've been going over in Unit 2, and I kind of broke it down into two parts. So the first part we're going to talk about is inverse. Now, I have no idea what you know, what you kind of know, and what you 100% have mastered. So I'm just going over what I saw, and then if you need, to fast forward or you need further clarification, you just let me know. But I'm just kind of going over everything. So here we go. Inverse. So there's three things that you need to know for inverse for this stuff. First is how to handle points, then how to handle equations, and then how to handle graphs. Second one's the hardest, the other two are fairly simple. So, let's talk about inverse and points. So, all you have to do with points is you just switch the x and the y. That's it. Very simple. So, a point like this, the inverse of that point, you would switch, would just be -4, 2. That's the inverse. Okay? Now, I don't know if she's going to make you, if you have to write, the inverse notation with the little thingy there. I don't know. But that's all you have to do. Fairly simple. So, if you get something that says find the inverse of the graph, and you have a graph, you need to find the inverse of the points. Now, this could be a multiple choice question where you have to pick the one point that is inverse, or you could actually have to draw it out, or I don't know. Okay? But all you have to do is basically find these points, and then tell me the inverse. So, let's just go through them one by one. So, this point, if I count, is 1. So, the xy is 1. And then we count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 1/6. I'll go ahead and label it A. Doesn't really matter. This point, I'll say B, is -1, 2. And this point over here, I'll call it C, is -1, 2, 3, 4, and +1. So those are the points as they are now. To find the inverse, you just flip them. So I'll go ahead and put A, B, and C over here. My super high techness. Okay, A is 1/6. So I'm just going to put this little thing here for inverse. So the inverse would be 6/1. She might have you graph it. So you know how to graph, but if you had to graph it, you would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. Plot that point. B is -1, 2. So it would be 2, -1. Just flip it, and then to graph it, you would do 1, 2, -1. And then C would be -4, 1, so you flip it, and it would be 1, -4. And then if you were to graph it, it would be 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And then you could draw a line there. So, that's inverse points. Pretty simple, nothing too difficult there. Sometimes I'll ask you if points are inverse of each other. Well, that's pretty simple to find out. You just figure out what the points are and see if they were flipped. So this point right here is 0, 3. And this point right here is 1, 2, 3, 3, 0. So are they inverse of each other? And you're going to say, yeah, because they flipped. Yes. Okay. They might actually even have you have graphs and say, are these graphs inverse of each other? And you would just look at their points and see if they flipped. It's the same concept. Okay. Points, pretty simple. Here's where it gets a little harder. For equations, you have to switch the x and the y and then solve for y. So that's where it gets a little trickier. So I'm just going to do 2 examples. If you need more examples of these, let me know and we can do a bunch more. I had one girl come in for tutoring for Algebra 2 2 weeks ago, and we did 80 of these. We just did it for an hour. Okay, so if you need more help with this, let me know. But I'm just doing 2 here. So it says find the inverse of, and I put y equals 1/2 x squared plus 2. So we're going to find the inverse. The first thing you do is you switch the x and the y. So x equals 1/2 y squared plus 2. Okay, now I have no idea how you were taught how to do this. I have no idea if you were in 8th grade when you did algebra. I have no clue. Here's how I teach my kids, except for it's not this hard. I have them draw a line. You might not do that, I don't know. So the first thing when you're solving for y, you're going to get rid of is the 2. Because it's the constant, it's further away. The opposite of adding 2 is subtracting 2. Okay, that goes away. X minus 2, so x minus 2 equals 1/2 y squared. You're going to deal with the 1/2 before the squared. And if you're not really sure what to do first, I have a stupid way of remembering it, but one way you can also think of it, think PEMDAS, and instead of going, from the top down, you're going from the bottom up. So you deal with the adding or subtracting first, which is what we did, and then you deal with the multiplying or dividing next, which is what we're going to do. So we don't deal with the exponent yet. That's going to be next. We're going to deal with the multiplying and dividing. So side by side means multiplied. The opposite of multiplying by 1/2 is dividing by 1/2. I think you know this, but just in case. Like, let's say, we're not going to. Well, I guess we can. Okay, so this is like a 1 right here, right? So if you do 1 divided by 1/2, you can do it in the calculator, obviously, but I know sometimes you're not allowed calculators in class. This is the thing where you keep it, change it, flip it, where you multiply by the reciprocal. So this is just 1 times 1/2, or 2 over 1, sorry. Like, you just flip these, and this looks horrible. 1 times 2 is 2, and then 1 times 1 is 1, and you just get 2. Okay? Or, calculator, because my little babies, that would never happen. You would do, so I don't know how you want to write it, but you would just like divide by 1/2, and then you divide by 1/2. You can write it differently. 1 divided by 1/2 in the calculator, make sure you put the fraction in parentheses, is 2. So either way you want to do it. So 2x, and then -2 divided by 1/2. You could just do 2 and 1/2, but sometimes, I don't think you would, but you get the negatives kind of confused. So -2 divided by 1/2, either in your head in the calculator, is -4. So you get -4 equals y squared. Okay? This tends to be where most kids get tripped up. So I dealt with that, and then the next thing is the exponent. So what is the opposite of squaring something? Well, you're going to say the square root of something, right? Square root. So that goes away, you're just left with y equals square root of 2x minus 4. And then make sure you just put the plus or minus, because that's how square roots work, right? So that's how you do that. Okay, if you need more help with that, let me know. We can do more practice problems together, and I can give you some to do. But yeah, I'm sure you saw that on your test and probably on homework as well. Okay, let's do an easier one. Easy peasy. A linear one, because I'm sure you've seen this as well. So the first thing we do is flip it. So x equals 6y minus 1. You deal with the adding 1 first. So you get x plus 1 equals 6y. And then you divide by 6, correct? Divide the whole thing by 6. That's like a 1 right there. I don't know if she... Okay, so you could write this 2 different ways. You could put a 1 there. 1 divided by 6 in fraction form is just 1/6. So you could put 1/6 x. And then 1 divided by 6 is also 1/6. So plus 1/6 equals y. So you could write it like that. Or your teacher might have you write it as x over 6 plus 1/6 equals y. These two things, I know they look different, are the same thing. So I don't know how she'd want you to write it, but bam, there you go. Inverse, okay? She might also have you match a graph to that. So all you would do is go to y equals in your calculator, go to the graph and match it, or go to the table and match it, however you want to do that. But that's one way you can do that. Alright, now again, easy stuff. When you're dealing with graphs, you switch the x and the y, which we've already done. And a big thing to remember when you're doing inverse is that it reflects over y equals x. So if you have a graph here, it's always going to reflect over that linear parent function, y equals x. I'm going to show you why that happens here, and then we're done with this. So how this reflects. So let's say I have these, and I need to make the inverse, okay? So yet again, I need the points. This is 0, 2. So it is 0, 2. This is, if I can count right, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 2, 4. And then this guy is 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3, 7. Okay? So for the inverse, so I'm just going to write them over here. That is a horrible arrow. Okay, whatever. You know what I'm saying. So the inverse would be 2, 0. Would be 4, 2. And 7, 3. Okay? So let me plot those points. 2, 0 is right there. 4, 2 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 right here. And 7, 3 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3 right there. Okay? And if I were to draw like a line, those would all kind of go together. And those would all kind of go together. And y equals x is right here. So you can see how those points are being reflected over y equals x. So that's how it reflects. And that's one of the things that you just need to memorize, that it reflects over y equals x. It's just one of those things you gotta memorize. Okay? So that's inverse. If you need further instruction on one of those things, let me know. I can help you out with that, or even give you practice problems for it as well, and then grade them, and whatever you need, you just let me know. Okay? This is all, yeah, random book.